Australia in front for the first time in the game.
Moment for Australian basketball.
Hello everybody and welcome. It is NBL Rewind time, and if you are joining us for the first time, firstly, where have you been? Secondly, I'll explain what happens. Liam, Santa Maria and I go back and just watch old NBL Boomers games. We're going to get to that in a split second and we talk about it. Liam, hello to you.
Hello, Cam. Ready to get into this one?
This is an emotional watch for all the great reasons. And, of course, we are joined by Andrej Lemanis, head coach of the Brisbane Bullets, and, of course, former coach of the Boomers, was there that magical day at Marvel Stadium last year. 53,000 people crammed in. We knocked the US off. Dre, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Liam and I, to put it bluntly, are just basketball geeks. So we spend a lot of our time watching old games and then just being able to well up emotions on the side of it. And watching this back it's so much fun. Liam and I were there. You were a lot closer to the action, but it is such a great watch. Before we get into the game and everything else, have you watched the game? Like, have you look at some point, have you gone, I'm going to go back and watch that game? Not from a review perspective, from an enjoyment perspective.
No, not from that perspective.
Okay.
Certainly watched it, obviously, afterwards, review in preparation for the rest of the World Cup campaign. But it was probably, I don't know, it's been in the last month, certainly, with all this time that we've had, has given us an opportunity to update all of our playbooks and do all that sort of stuff, get on top of your video. And as I was searching for some particular plays and was like, oh, well, let's just go have a look at that Boomers USA game. And that brought back a couple of happy memories and some smiles to the face for sure.
Remarkable. More than 50,000 people were in there on a Thursday night, then a Saturday, and the game we're going to touch on in a moment. Do you remember your emotions walking out onto the court with so many people there in a traditional football stadium and think, here we are in Australia in our own backyard in this remarkable circumstance? Do you remember allowing yourself to maybe enjoy it even for a split second, even though you would have been all business?
Yeah, it was, it was a special time for basketball, and it was something that needed to be appreciated, I think, at that time. And certainly as a coaching staff, we spoke about it, and we spoke about it as a team in terms of allowing ourselves to absorb all that in. And as you suggested there, the thing that I think the things that really stood out was that in Melbourne, which was, an AFL town, here we were in an AFL stadium, so we'd kicked them out during their season, and that we were able to attract 100,000 fans over the course of 2 nights into that stadium to come and watch basketball. And that, for me, I've played basketball since I was 6 years old. I came through when nobody knew what basketball was, and at school, people, thought I was playing netball when I said I was playing basketball. And so to see the growth of the sport sort of culminate in that very moment was pretty cool and pretty special.
We obviously knew it was a special moment having all those people in that arena and all the reasons you just outlined. But heading into that 2-game series, did you have a sense or a feeling like, if we snag a win here, it's going to be, a really historic moment, and we're a really good chance to get that done?
The historic moment part of it, no, like that's not what I guess the team was about. It was the team, like all teams, you sit there and you're at the start of the campaign, you set your goals and your values and how you're going to operate and go about your business. And certainly one of the things that we had was just getting better every day. And we saw those two games as opportunities to play a great team and continue to get better as a group. And that's something that we had identified, that in order to have success at a World Cup or an Olympic Games, you needed to play against good basketball teams in the preparation. And certainly the USA, when we organised the games, were as good a team as you could possibly get in terms of preparation. And so we saw those as a fantastic opportunity to work on who we wanted to be as a team, our offensive and defensive frameworks and structures, continue to work on our rotations. I mean, we only had 6 leading games going in the World Cup, which was sort of a reduced schedule. We'd played Canada twice and hadn't had everybody available for those games. So this was the first time that we were going to get the whole 12 guys available and kind of start to figure out what we might look like once we got to the World Cup. So that was the mindset going in. And again, working with a remarkable bunch of athletes who extremely focused, extremely proud to play for Australia, sacrifice for the good of group, and just a great bunch to be around. And so to share that moment with that group was really special.
Paddy Mills yesterday, I'm actually just trying to find it and bring it up, posted some comments and so some footage from this game and some comments about like what it said. Being a part of the Australian national team is a beautiful example of how a group of people can come together, share similarities, learn from differences, and find a way to work together to accomplish a common goal. And you've talked at length over the journey about how special an experience it's been working with that Boomers team and that group of guys. How does that actually, all of that coming together, how does that manifest itself within the team, within the locker room, within the bus, on the flights? Like, what did you find was so special about working with that group?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to perhaps put in the words. I mean, there's the journey of it, and it's ultimately the shared sense of purpose, I think, is everybody wanting to achieve the same outcome and result, and being prepared to put all individual ego and self-interest aside in order to get that done. And it's the purest form of sacrificing for the good of the group that you can ever be involved with. I mean, you get guys who are, by the very nature of making the national team, they're great players in their own club environments, often stars in their own club environments. And to see those guys come in and, we spend a lot of time, again, setting the scene, talking to who we're going to be and what that's going to take. And to see the genuine passion from guys to say, I don't care if I play 40 minutes or a second, I'm going to give whatever I can to this team and whatever it needs for the team to be successful. I'm into it and I'll be happy with that. And so that, and it sort of manifests itself in all sorts of different ways. And, you see it on the court, but you also see it with the guys hanging out together. You see how much they enjoy each other's company. On the buses, the dialogue that goes on. It's not, a lot of NBA type environments. I think even a lot of environments these days, players get on a bus and everyone puts on their headphones and gets into their music. And, with these guys, you see them talking and laughing and sharing a joke and talking about the game. And they go out and organise dinners together. And, there's the dinner at the hotel, but whatever it is, 2 or 3 times a week, they've just said, no, we're not eating at the hotel tonight. We're going to go out as a group. And it just manifests itself in so many different ways. And it's just it's a pure environment, and so much of sport today is, and it's grown and evolved, and it's fantastic in terms of being professional, and people make a lot of money from it. But that also can drive behaviours and self-interest. And I guess being with the national team brings it back to the purity of why we all started playing, like the love of the game.
This period, as you as the head coach, from these games, the warm-up games, couple in Perth against Canada, as you touched on, in Melbourne, then to World Cup, which you had a wonderful campaign, maybe a little too short for what you'd like to remember. We'll get to that later, but it was such a fun experience with a really good team that had some amazing results. At all during the preparation, everything you do and the hard work and everything you have to worry about 24/7. Is it enjoyable from a tangible experience for you? Because we love it. Like, we're sitting here, we're watching it from the stands or on the TV, and we're thinking, this is so cool because we're watching our national team have a chance to be the best in the world, and you're driving it. You're the architect really at the top of it. But do you ever get to enjoy it, be in the moment?
Interesting question. The answer is, yes, you do get to enjoy it. You're working with the best athletes Australia has in the game, who are good people, there for the right reasons. And so, again, that purity and ability just to get lost in practices and the games and just enjoy that, just how the elite level at which you're competing, and the ability to actually make a difference and influence by what you're saying, and guys get it, and also their contribution and feedback to the whole thing. And as a coach, you learn a lot in those environments too, from being with the best players. And so that part of it is extremely enjoyable. And I think it's like always, when you're in the game and when you're in the practices, when you're able to get lost just in the purity of the basketball, that part is extremely enjoyable. When you talk about being in the moment, that's when you can be in the moment. Outside of that, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of things you got to get to, and a lot of competing interests for your time and attention. And some of that is taxing and difficult. When you reflect on it, the overall experience is great. But I mean, I've said it many times, the worst thing as the national coach for me, worst experiences, is sitting in a room during a selection camp for players who've given their all and want to represent their country, and to sit there and say, I love what you've given, but no, you're not going to the Olympic Games, or you're not going to the World Cup. Like, that's a really bad discussion to have, and that's the worst day being involved in the national team.
Let's go take it back to these games this game that we're talking about, and this two-game series at Marvel Stadium went down in game one. You're talking about how the process for you guys was trying to get better every day, trying to improve as a team for the campaign. What adjustments did you guys make from game one to game two? What levers did you, the squad, your coaching staff pull between those games?
Yeah, an interesting one, and I think a lot of it is the middle pick and roll. Obviously, was it's a big part of every basketball game at the moment. And in game one, Walker made a lot of those pull-up jumpers from around 15 feet, and that was a part of our on-ball defensive strategy to give up that shot. And I think, not that I read the media around it very much, but when you're in that environment, you can't help but sort of get some of the whitewash of all the turbulence that is happening around it. And I think there's a lot of criticism about why we didn't change our pick and roll defense. And it was, again, analytics drive a lot of the game at the moment. And, it's something that we believed in, and we sort of charted everything. And still from that, they didn't really hurt us that, as badly as everybody felt that they had hurt us from that range. They made a few more than you'd expect normally, and it's like, no, we're going to stick with it. We just sort of had, Bogan and those bigs come up a little bit further and stunt a little bit more, but other than that, it's like, no, we're going to live with this, and that's what it is. Guards don't get screened, chase a little bit more, and that was part of the defensive thing, and just being a bit more disruptive up the floor, and what we could do to just get the ball out of Walker's hands and make some of the bigs handle in the backcourt a little bit more, and start their offense for them, or because it became evident they're a very set-based team, heavy set-based team, and so we tried to be just a little bit more disruptive and a bit more influence a little bit more who was making plays for them and who was going to take some shots. And then offensively, we changed our press break a little bit to ensure that we could get into what we wanted to get into when they started to get up the floor on us and try to speed us up a little bit. And just a little bit around the shot selection. Again, it's one of those things that's continual evolution. Whenever you get a new group together, is what are the best shots for us? When do we want to shoot them? What are we prepared to accept and what aren't we prepared to accept? And there's some growth in that on the back end of every game. And I think certainly in game one, we took some shots that we all agreed probably weren't in the best interest of the team. And let's, again, just use that as a growing experience. And then game two against the USA, let's have less of those.
Was it a conscious decision as a group? Is it something you talked about to put Joe in more of those playmaking type situations in that second game? Because certainly in the second quarter, that first half, that was like an obvious difference to what happened. And maybe it was just an organic thing, him trying to be more aggressive, but he was making many more plays in that regard in that first half than he did in the previous games.
Yeah, I mean, it's twofold. I think certainly, discussion with him around you need to have more influence on the game because you can, and him like being disappointed perhaps with how much influence he had in game one and wanting to come out and play a bit, have more influence in game two and taking that more on his shoulders and find ways to put himself in those positions, and a little bit too, certainly a bit of tweak of the offense to give him those opportunities to get his hands on the ball a little bit more.
A lot of USA started pretty warm. I think they hit the first 4 or 5 shots, but Joe Ingles was a big part of it. But your points in the paint, Aaron Baines early on, Paddy Mills was being able to use those streams. But then Andrew Bogut come in and was really, really effective in that first half, and we might touch a little more on that later. But those points in the paint really helped you grind through those situations where the USA started pretty hot.
Yeah, and that's, again, part of the identity of the group, I think, is just we understood the importance of keeping heat on the rim. And when I talk about the shot selection from game one, it was one of those things that we identified, that how good things happen when the ball hits the post or when we get 2 feet in the paint. And it doesn't mean, particularly when we play through the post, it doesn't mean that those guys are going to shoot it every time. We use that as an opportunity to create for others and cutting opportunities, and Bogs and Baines and those guys are such good passers. The good things happen as a result of those guys getting touches. And I think that's one of the things that Luke really brought to the group, was just that awareness and focus and just a constant reminder of the importance of using those post players. And he was great with them as well in terms of helping them understand their responsibilities when they got the post touches, to ensure that it was in the best interest of the group that we throw it in there. So it's certainly a focus for the team, and it's focus for every team that I'm on, to be honest. It's one of those things that wanes in and out at different times and different teams, and obviously personnel dependent as well, but it certainly proved successful for us, or useful for us in that game. And it did during the World Cup. It was one of those settling sort of home-based situations that we could always go back to when things got a little bit ratty.
Do you remember any particular moments or key moments, big plays or anything during the kind of mid part of the game, the first half, maybe the second quarter, third quarter, that stand out to you? I mean, we all remember some of those key moments down the stretch with Paddy and when the offense was just working so beautifully. But do you remember anything during that mid part of the game that stood out for you as a big moment?
No, not really. I mean, as you say, I think some of the stuff that stands out is just offensively, our ability to stretch them out and get some stuff at the rim and move the ball, and made some big plays. And I guess maybe a little bit to the point earlier, I think we got 10 down early in the third. Mm-hmm. There's a little sense of here we go again, sort of, they're starting to pull away from us a little bit, and we really rallied at that point, and we went into Bogs, and he made a little hook shot and one situation. I think he might have even made the foul shot, and that put us back down 7 and gave us a little bit of just, sort of kept us in touch and a little momentum and rhythm. And I thought that was a particularly big play. And I think defensively we had a couple of stops in a row, like where we were up the floor and disrupted, and they took a bad shot, and then I think we even got a steal on one of them, and again just generated a little bit of momentum, and sort of the 10-point lead for them evaporated what felt quite quickly, and suddenly we're back in the game, and here we go, and momentum started happening. So, but no, not other than that Bogut and one play. There's not really anything that just sticks out as key plays.
Nick Kay was really good in this game and had a great campaign, and we know how good he's been, of course, in the NBL in particular last couple of years in championships and all NBL first teams. And when you went into camp and Nick Kay was a part of it, from the outside looking in, based on the names on the paper, we thought, Nick Kay probably going to be close, but might just get squeezed out with the depth on the team. And then he makes the team and then turns into what was a wonderful campaign. I'm not going to ask you if you were surprised by what he was able to do, because he seemed so close and it just kind of happens. But his ability to do what he did in Australian colours was brilliant and huge for the team at different points, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and really happy for him because he's such a great person. And the journey with Nick is a little bit like my journey with Mika Vukona. To be fair, is you see the guy, and I think by his own admission, he's not the most athletic guy in the world, and he's not going to blow you away with pace and all those sorts of things. And you get to a level, and you go, how will he go at the next level? And then both Mika and Nick, NBL, yeah, actually, geez, they've turned into really good players, and they can still be effective and do those things that they do. And it's like, how will they go internationally? How's that going to translate? Will they be able to be as effective? And as we've seen, the answer is yes, they are. And I think one of the things that really helped Nick, and this is where that, like the new qualification format for the World Cup played its part, I think, in terms of, he came in and was a big part of that qualification process, and learnt the systems and the offense and how it works and flows, and he understood how he could be effective, but he's such a smart player. He understood how he could help other people within that system. And that's the thing that really stood out the moment we got into camp. It's like, goodness me, like he helps this whole thing work, and he helps other guys get open, and he helps, Paddy Mills and Joe Ingles and Andrew Bogut and those guys continue have a positive impact on the game. So he's just smart. He got in the right spots, knew how to make it work. And then again, he's just one of those guys who fits in, right? He's happy to be wherever he needs to be, and seems to be in the right spot at the right time a lot of times, and cleans up a lot of stuff, and smart defensively, and just plugs away, and yeah, really effective. So he was a cool story from out of the World Cup for sure.
You mentioned earlier about sitting down with a player who's been great and is just missed selection, but I assume when you sit down with someone like a Nick Kay in this situation and you're able to give great news, it's just an amazing moment. For that minute or two to be with that person, it would be just almost euphoric from almost anyone in the room.
Yeah, it is. And they're that's the flip of what I said before. They're the moments that bring a tear to your eye, seeing someone who's so passionate and wants something so much, has the absolute pride in playing for their country, and to see sort of it soak in and realize that, yes, it's going to happen for them, and being there and sharing in that moment with them is really cool. It's just something, you can't script, that just evolves, and you see it on their face. And, I think Nick's words were, you're kidding, right? Like he was expecting to be cut. And then he was like, then you see it start to sink in that it's not a joke, and he's going to go. And that was really cool. And another one that really stands out for me was Chris Goulding back in 2016 Rio Olympics. And he came into the room, and he basically had his hoodie on, and he was sweating. He was so anxious and nervous he could hardly sit down. And then just seeing his reaction when when you got the opportunity to tell him, yep, he's going to be an Olympian. That was an amazing and special moment, as it is with all of them, but some stand out more than others, of course. And where was I going with that? With
Nick.
Anyway,
but cool. Do you have the same feelings when you become the Australian coach, and then at some point you qualify for Olympic Games, and that's what so much is leading towards? I assume you have those same individual emotional feelings when you sit down and go through the process of applying for the job and being given, hey, you know what, you're the coach of the Australian team.
Yeah, you're right. That was a pretty surreal and amazing phone call when I got that particular call to tell me I was the coach of the national team. It's one of those things where it is. It's emotional and you're proud, but pretty quickly it switches to responsibility. Like this is a job that carries with it the weight of the nation, the weight of the basketball nation, and you got to do it justice, and you have to do the sport justice, and you have to do the players justice, and do it to the best of your ability and give it everything that you got, which you always do as a coach. But yeah, for sure, it was a very proud moment, and every time I stepped on the floor with the national team was a proud moment.
Speaking of the the investment of the public and the Australian basketball fans in that team, one of the things that I'll always remember from that night was the surge of noise and energy from the crowd as they got a sense like we might actually win this game. I think it was first really felt at the start of the fourth quarter when you guys were up 2 at 3/4 time. And there was, during that break, I think, the whispers got around the arena like, hey, we could help bring this team home. There was some energy then. And then I think 3.5 minutes to go, down 2, step back 3 from Joe Ingles. And he had the big fella isolated on the wing, and he just kind of took that moment, and the crowd kind of lifted. On the sidelines, as you were trying to make sure you didn't fall over the back of that elevated court, did you feel that surge of energy? Like, did that go right through you?
Yeah, it was interesting, obviously, being in that sort of a stadium. And as you say, the elevated court was a unique experience in itself, and certainly felt more disconnected from the team than you normally are, because the players and the bench and the coaches are sitting down, and so making a concerted effort to get down off the court as much as I could to ensure that communication and connection with what was going on with the bench was there. And again, with those bigger stadiums like that, noise tends to just drift and get lost. So you don't. Well, certainly, I hadn't felt it really during. You didn't feel like there was 50,000 people in the place until, as you say, like we started to get to those moments, and there was, and I can't pinpoint it as clearly as you did there, but there was certainly a moment where you felt sort of the vibrations, start to come through your body, and you go, hey, there are people here, and this is starting to get pretty cool here. So yeah, that was fun. The experience was fun, but as is always the case, as when you're so engrossed and involved in the game, you realise afterwards what you felt during the game. During the game, you're not paying attention to that. You're still seeing, you're obviously so engrossed in what's happening with the game and what the next play is and what's going on, and do you need to make subs, and what's going on with that pick and roll defense. Is it time to change it? Otherwise you're going to get criticised by Liam Santa Maria after the game. So
analysed.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How many calls did you have to make to change pick and roll defense in the middle of the game? How many times did you have to make that decision, Liam?
No, I just get to
change pick and roll defense as the coach in either international or NBL basketball.
I've been the one out there giving you the love for the pick and roll defense.
I appreciate it. It's just interesting.
It was a remarkable 3.5 minutes. The Joe Ingles 3 that Liam just touched on, and then you get a stop. Patty Mills banks a 3. Like a straight-on 3, banks it. The lead's 4. There's, I think, 2:57. And the whole joint's going nuts because, while you are like in a timeout trying to make sure you got your defense set up or what you can do offensively, there's 50,000 people in this stadium going, holy, this is almost historic. And for us, we allow ourselves to get caught up in the moment. But maybe not necessarily if you don't essentially think about this exact timeout per se, but how hard is it as a coach in an emotionally charged moment like this one was? You're up 4, you're on the verge of something, to be able to make sure that everyone, the 5 on the court, or everyone is locked into what you're trying to get in place over the next minute or 2.
I mean, that's your job, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what it's all about. You're always about process, and you're always about staying on the next play, and nothing changes in those environments. And certainly with, again, this group of athletes, that was really easy because they were all in exactly the same place. And so everyone knew that the job wasn't done, that we had, whatever it was, 3 minutes to play. And that coming out of this, it was important to understand what we were going to do defensively and then what the next thing we were going to do offensively was, and sort of what the plan was to run it down from here. And so, if anything, like they're looking at you as if to say, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. What's next? Come on, let's get organised here. And they keep you on track as well. But that's certainly, that's the job of the coach. And I think over time, that's what comes with experience. Like in any job, the more opportunity you have to go through those situations, I guess the better you get at managing them. And I think with younger teams, that's the challenge for any coach, is just getting the group back together and not too carried away with themselves, and understanding that the most important thing is the next thing.
I'm going to hazard a guess here, Liam, and say that in the review, that the next defensive play was probably brought up a couple of times, because Harrison Barnes got a pretty easy layup while 50,000 people are going nuts and it's all exciting. Harrison Barnes in about 3 seconds got layup and cut that to 2. So there was a lot of nervous tension within that arena at the time.
But meanwhile, down the other end, I mean, the last few minutes of this game were so special, special. And obviously it was because the team won, but it was also because of what Paddy did, essentially. And Dre, I wonder, I feel like what happened at the offensive end during those minutes were the culmination of so much that had gone before during your time at the Boomers, because it was the symmetry between Joe and Paddy and Bogs and those guys that had been, through the journey in the green and gold together, and Daly, combined with their ability, the culture that you guys had built to bring new people in. Nick Kay was on the floor during that period of time, and Jock Landale, guys that hadn't necessarily been around all that time. And it was also the system just clicking to the point where that not only was everyone in harmony, but it feels like they just instantly got the sense, Paddy's cooking, we go to this, we go to that counter, we go to this, but we're trying to get the ball into Paddy's hands in good moments. I mean, how much during that time, how much involvement did you have in play calling, and were you guys running specific things versus it was just happening organically within the group?
The answer is it happens organically. And I think I can't describe it any better than what you've done there, Liam. It's probably pointless in me just repeating what you've said. It's the result of time. It's the result of a group investing from whenever it was. Pick it 2012. I mean, we went to the Olympics together. I was an assistant coach there, but that same sort of core group staying together, and I mean, it happens organically as well, because you allow that you create that environment to allow those sorts of things to happen. Like, we weren't a set space team. We played out of frameworks and structures, and then it's read and react. And the group found something that they liked, which, we'd actually, that particular framework we'd only introduced sort of a couple of days beforehand. So we were experimenting with it a little bit, out of Bogs out of the elbow hits and some of the splits action off, that sort of stuff.
Right.
That had only come in a few days earlier. And so it was nice to sort of see that flourish. But then, as you say, the guys just, again, with all the culmination of all sorts of things, right, and the time spent and away from the court as well, when we have our value sessions and talk about what we're going to be as a group and identifying, like, who do we need to go to. And, Paddy's our guy. Paddy's the one who's going to take shots, big shots, and we need to find ways to get him open, and everybody having the understanding of that. Then having the players who are smart enough to manipulate systems to go ahead and get that done. Paddy wanting the responsibility, everybody prepared to give him that responsibility as well. It all sort of, that's what it looks like over the course of time. And it was interesting. I was listening to a podcast and Steve Kerr was speaking about it, and being interviewed on the podcast. I think it was a Bill Simmons podcast. I mean, I listen to you guys too, of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
After you'd finished with us, you moved it.
Yeah.
Considering you just whacked Liam about 5 minutes ago, I knew you occasionally glance into NBL overtime, so that's a nice result.
And he actually got to the Australian national team. He spoke about some of the differences between Team USA and the Australian national team who he had scouted, and he'd followed us all through the Rio Olympics as well. Obviously, close friends with Luke, and continued to communicate with Luke about what he saw and what he liked. And he made a comment in that podcast that for him, one of the true differences was Team USA. They were putting in end out of bounce plays at shoot around, and here we were as the Boomers. Like he had us as a scout, and he's watching us run plays that we ran at the 2016 Rio Olympics, and here we were getting lob dunks on the back end of it. And for him, that was, a real separator between, those groups that had spent time together like we had, and Team USA, which was trying to find its way as 12 different individuals coming together for 6 weeks.
You mentioned the group, and it happens in all sports. Like Paddy Mills was incredible and has been incredible for a long time. Joe Ingles put up some big games, Matthew Dellavedova. And traditionally, the high-scoring guards are the ones that probably get talked most about from neutral fans. But I just want to touch on Andrew Bogut. He's obviously made a half a statement this week talking about the uncertainty of his own basketball career. But if you look at his time with the Australian Boomers, and majority of it with you, his Rio Olympics, I think, is almost criminally underrated. Hurt that knee in the NBA Finals, got himself in ripping shape and had a great campaign. And he's a big part of what you were just talking about then. Just a little bit on Andrew Bogut, on I guess, his presence, and not just from a physical standpoint, but also on and off the court when it comes to what he's been able to do.
I can't speak more highly of Bogs. He, as you say, that 2016 thing, I think really encapsulates what he meant to this group. And anyone who followed us in the lead up let's go back to the year before in 2015 when we had to qualify for the Olympics, and we're playing New Zealand in a 2-game series, home and away, point differential. We play at home, win by, I think it was 10, going to New Zealand, big game. Like the day after, I get the call from the doc. He can't get out of bed. His back is done. Absolutely. He can't move, can't do anything. The rest of the team flies to New Zealand. We leave Andrew there, thank him very much for his contribution. We'll go get this done for you, kind of, mate. And he's like, well, if I can, I'll try to get there. I'll do my best. And it's like, mate, you can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
But to his word, like the next day, he comes in, he's on a flight that gets in at midnight. He's got the doctors injecting him so he can't feel the pain, and doesn't say anything to anybody. Like, this isn't public knowledge, obviously. And he goes out and starts and plays a great game and helps us qualify 2016 Rio Olympics through tremendous pain and suffering, and doesn't say a word about it. And nobody appreciates that. And just, when he walked in, like the next morning, the game day before shoot around, we had video, and Bogues walks in, and all the players are kind of looking like, what's he doing here? I'm like, well, he's playing. And you see, all the chests come up, and like, Bogues play, awesome. Here we go. And it was sort of similar in 2016. Like, he came in, he had the knee injury, and they played late, and he still came in. I'll give you what I can give you. Let's manage this. And we got to the point where we're selecting the team, and I've got to say, Alex Maric, unbelievable in that moment too. To Alex, you're not selected in the team, but Bogues at the moment is injured. We're not sure if he's going to be ready. We want to take you on the tour. If Bogues doesn't come up, you're in the team. But if he does come up, you're out. You're not going to the Olympics. You're going to do all the hard work. You're not going to the Olympics. Didn't hesitate. Yep, I'm in. No problems. Whatever you need. Unbelievable. And that's the sort of people that you're talking about that this team was built with. And again, those sorts of things just go underappreciated and just so important to the development of the group. But yeah, through that leading part, and we're finding our way. And another great story, Ryan Brockhoff, couldn't find a minute at the start of that campaign, and then ends up playing significant minutes for us. But so anyone who followed that campaign would look at us and say we were struggling offensively. It wasn't great. We were a little concerned still as a coaching staff that we weren't where we needed to be. And again, we'll go and did what we identified we needed to do. We were going playing great teams, and we're playing France and Lithuania, and some of these teams were giving us a bit of a touch up, and it was a little, some anxious moments certainly going into the Olympics, and some doubt within the group. And then Bogut's kind of come along, and he hadn't played a game with us, and we had a closed door exhibition, a closed door final hit out against Spain when we got to the Olympics in the practice venue. And that was the first time Bogut was going to play with the group. I think he practiced for 1 or 2 days prior to that. And suddenly it was, am I allowed to swear on this show?
No, far away, man.
You're
a star. You do whatever you want.
Shit, look at this offense now.
Right.
Aren't we just a fantastic coaching staff? Look how good this is. Andrew Bogut is 7 foot and smart and skilled and passes and screens and knows exactly how to make this damn thing work. Mm-hmm. And it was like it was one of those moments where you could just see the whole group sort of find a belief, and he made that whole thing work. Yes, you need all the other pieces, no doubt, but he was sort of the missing link that held it all together. And so just suddenly, like what you saw, what the public saw in the 2016 Olympics, like that, Bogut orchestrated all that, like in terms of the offensive, just coordination and flow and freedom and movement, and making it look like, like I still get asked around, how do you run that stuff? And, what do you do to get that back door case? Like, well, you have Andrew Bogut and Paddy Mills is what you do. You have smart players and you give them some spacing, and here you go. And then defensively as well, he's just, he's talk, and he's immediately gets everybody organized, really directive in how we're going to deal with it, which direction we're going to push some players. And that gives everybody a confidence and just a sense of clarity and purpose, and here we go. And so that really gave us, I think, a really strong backbone, and his presence and ability to protect the rim and rebound and get us going, all that stuff that just made the team work. And as I think has been suggested, is completely underappreciated. And for me, Bogut made the whole thing work, to be honest. And the other thing is, for everything that he had achieved, he's such a no nonsense into the team guy. Never do you have to worry about him being late to anything. Never do you have to worry about him not wearing the right gear. Like, everything is spot on. He's such a professional. He understands how teams work, and he's committed to it, and he's in, and he's the one about, hey fellas, let's go out for a dinner. And then suddenly, like, again, this is the team goes out. Coaches aren't at those things, but you hear stuff like suddenly the bill's being picked up, and what happened? Like, Bogut paid for it. It's like things like that, like just stuff that people don't realize and give him credit for. But he's such a special human, and I'm just fortunate I got the opportunity to work with him. Through such a unique and special moment. So, yeah, that was pretty cool.
You told that story about Alex Maric and the no hesitation when you spoke to him about that. I imagine it was not too dissimilar when you called Mitch Creek to say, hey, we want you to come back into the squad. And then at the end of this game, he actually had a massive moment when you guys needed one stop, timeout, and you made the decision. I guess you made the decision you wanted to be able to switch right across 1 to 5, and you injected Creaky in, and he ended up guarding Donovan Mitchell on that final play. What do you remember about that decision to inject him in that moment, and his sort of involvement in that squad?
To inject him in the moment, don't have that clearer memory of it, other than I think leading into that time where Bogut had switched on to, it was either Mitchell or Walker, and they'd, bounce, pull up 3 ball. And it was like, that's on us as a coaching staff. If we're going to let Bogut switch, we put him in a bad spot. And down the stretch, it was, let's get the versatility of Creek in there and allow him to do that sort of stuff. And we feel better about that matchup, and will give us the opportunity to switch and have Creek in a better position to guard that. the Alex Marich conversation, the Creek one, as you suggest there, was reflective, I think, of what is so wonderful about Australian basketball and why I've been so just privileged and humbled to be involved. And it permeates throughout the entire process. And I've spoken about the World Cup qualifiers and that whole qualification process, which is a long grinding process. And I'm not sure how many, but maybe we went through 25 or 26 athletes throughout those 12 qualification games. And we sat there at the start and with the NBL-based guys, with a broader group, and said, this is the landscape. There's 12 games to qualify. We need you guys. The NBA guys aren't available. EuroLeague guys aren't available. You guys are going to do all the heavy lifting without any guarantee of going to a World Cup or Olympic Games. Like, if anybody doesn't want in, I get it. I understand. Just let me know. To a man, every single one of them were in. And then along the way, there's conversations, and Mitch Norton is one who stands out. He's always one of those guys who's kind of on the bubble of that team. He was, sorry, Mitch, you've missed the team, and then someone get injured. Mitch, spots become available. I know I told you 3 days ago you missed out. I'm sorry, but do you want in? He's, yeah, I'm in, no problem. And all of them, to a man, were always like that. Whenever you told them that, I'm sorry you missed out on the selection on this occasion, they're being like, I get it, disappointed, but if you need me, let me know. I'm behind the team. I'm still going to support the team, and that permeated right through the process. And the Creek conversation when he missed out on the World Cup team was one of those ones that I referred to earlier. Was one of those tough conversations to be in the room, like just to see the disappointment on his face and how much it meant to him. And again, he, like, to each of them, again, to their credit, have always been unbelievably. They're just unbelievable human beings. When you give them that information and they're disappointed, the reaction of disappointment is still always followed by, I give my best to the team and I'll support it, and I want the team to do well, and I'll be watching and wishing you guys go get that gold medal, go get it done, sort of thing. And his was definitely that of that tone and nature. And then when we had the situation with Jonah Bolden stepping away from the group and had the quick discussion as a coaching staff, it was like, yep, Creaky's the guy, and gave him the phone call. It was like 11 because we're over in Perth, and so it was late in Victoria. And I remember he picked up the phone and he said that he was in Kmart. I don't know what he was doing in Kmart.
Buying some NBL
I guess he was setting up his house. He was still moving to Melbourne, to southeast Melbourne. So he'd only been freshly released from the Boomers, and he was like, I told him, this is what's happened. Want you to come in. And he was like, awesome, Dre. Yep, I'm in. When can I fly over? And the next morning he was there, and ready to practice. And just there's so many cool and special moments like that you take joy and pleasure from. And when you get a chance to reflect on them like this, is just continues to highlight how special the Boomers environment is.
All right, so Creek plays his great defense. Donovan Mitchell misses a three, goes out off an Australian hand, and then Joe Harris gets a pretty decent look from the baseline and misses a three, and Australia rebound, I think it was Ingles, and ends up fouling Paddy Mills. He goes 1 and 2 from the line. The game's over. What is going through your mind? Like, I understand you're all business. You're heading towards a World Cup, but this whole joint's going nuts, and the USA hadn't lost for 13 years. Australia had never beaten them in senior men's international basketball. What's going through your mind in the moment that buzzer goes?
I'm going to be really disappointed with my answer here. It was just obviously Coach Pop. I have been fortunate to get to spend a lot of time with him, and he's been very welcoming in his time in San Antonio. I went and spent a lot of time with Brett when Brett was an assistant there, and everything was open and they shared. And so just went and shook his hand and had a good chat with him. And, we obviously, one of the things that I've learnt through being around Coach Pop is that everything's just the game, and it's always about the preparation and getting better and learning for the next game and not getting too high on the high and too low on the lows. And it was just sort of, shake his hand, have the chat, be humble and respectful of the entire situation, and get to the locker room and debrief with the team as we always do. And I don't think it really kind of hit me emotionally until probably the press conference. Bogut was in that press conference, and he spoke to, I guess, what it meant for Australian basketball to beat Team USA for the first time in our history. And, he spoke really eloquently and well about that and sort of the impact that will have on the Australian basketball landscape. And that's when I started to, I guess, get a little emotional about it. And then, of course, once you get back to the hotel and you get a chance to pick up your phone and seeing just the plethora of messages and people loving it, and that's what it is. It's how the enjoyment that the basketball community got from it that then gives you, I guess, a sense of pride about it.
Yeah, well, when you were debriefing and talking about a World Cup campaign and going to a press conference, there was 50,000 basketball fans, of which Liam and I were two of them, knocking back about our 15th lemonade, losing our minds somewhere across the CBD of Melbourne. So it was remarkable to be there. It was nuts.
Australia,
That was cool. And sort of just even that when we're driving out with the bus and still like seeing the fans with the green and gold scarves and like just huddle around the stadium and in the bars and all, like it was packed. As I guess I'm from Melbourne originally, and I used to go to the MCG a lot, and I'm an Essendon supporter, and that was the vision that you'd always had of AFL football, walking out and people enjoying themselves afterwards. And to think that basketball was able to create that in Melbourne City during football season, that was wonderful. And just the enjoyment that people were having, you could sense it. You could sense it in the streets, and just how proud everybody was. That was that's the joy that you take from it, I guess, is how much everybody else gets a kick out of it.
Is this win your favourite memory of a Boomers win during your time with the program? I mean, it was a massive win, but as you said before, it was a practice game, right? And there's so much focus on the close losses, the heartbreak finishes in the Olympics, and the Turkey game in Spain in 2014. But you guys also had some massive wins along the way, against Lithuania and the like. Is there a win that you've had along the way that for you is a fonder memory than this one?
Sorry, boys. Yeah, I mean, yes is the answer. There's so many special moments along the way. It's like we talk about, and I'm famous for going in roundabout answers, as you know, Liam, to get to where I eventually want to get to, and sometimes I forget where I'm going. But a story
works well in this form. Long form podcast is your happy space.
Something I didn't speak to earlier, I guess, was when you talk about the process. So in 2013, we got together as the core group. It's a time when we would qualify, when Australia qualified through the World Cup by playing New Zealand. Both teams were guaranteed to go. So normally it's a time when the NBA-based guys, they had their year off, no problems, here you go. And I said, look, I need 3 days, fellas, come on in. I want to set the scene leading up to 2016. And there's a few key things that happen in there. We set our values, set our trademarks, all those sorts of things. But as part of that, got them involved in setting the schedule out to 2016. And a few things that had been identified in the planning was that teams that won medals spent time together. And there's all evidence of that, of Spain in particular, and the cumulative games they played together with their core group. The other thing that had become evident that since the 2000 Olympics, Australia hadn't won the opening game at a World Cup or an Olympics. And given the format, that really puts you behind the 8 ball if you drop that first game. And so that was something that we identified as being important to us. And in order to get that done, and in order to go get this, and at that stage it was a medal. Later on in the campaign, it became a gold medal that we're after. At that stage, in order to get this first medal ever for the men's team, we needed to beat the best European teams. And in order to do that, we need to go and play them during the leading games. So we identified France, Spain, Lithuania, Serbia. Those are the teams that we need to go and play. We need to figure out how to beat them. But none of them are coming to play in Australia. So to do that, we all needed to commit the time to go ahead and go to Europe. And this is, again, during the guys' off-season and all those sorts of things that come with that. And so as a team, they sat down and they created these schedules which enable us to do all these things because they realized the importance of it and meant a lot more time away from their families. And to a man, like they looked at each other in the room and said, we're doing this, right? And then the other one was, again, in 2015, we need to qualify for the 2016 World Cup. There's 2-game series is going to that for the first time for 2016 Olympics. 2-game series in 2015, going to that format for the first time, home and away, cumulative points, dangerous. And I said to them that, I said to the group around, New Zealand continues to get better. We need to respect them, and they've got Steve Adams. If he puts his hand up, like this thing's for real.
Yeah.
And again, that combined with the need for us to continue to build and grow as a team, and in preparation for that, we're also going to Europe and playing Lithuania, and we're playing France, and we're playing Spain, because that's the longer term goal for the Olympics. But again, it takes commitment. And again, to a man, they all looked at each other and said, as long as we're not injured, we're all going, right? Like, we're all putting our hand up for this. And they did. And that was all part of the process. And so, you know, the first time we went and played Lithuania, we lost by, pick a number, maybe 40. Horns pick and roll with Kalanides, couldn't defend it. It was like, what is going on here? Like, the defensive strategy we had chosen was just horrendous.
I provided some analysis following that game.
You did. Yes, I'm sure you did. I'm sure I listened to it as well, Liam. We're all on board. We made your changes. But that's all part of the process, right? And so, you know, that growth. And so when you talk about games that, you know, stand out and make a difference, when we played Lithuania in 2014 World Cup and our disruptive defensive schemes and how we didn't let them get to their horns pick and roll. And when they did, we were able to defend that effectively. And we won that game. Like, that was huge. And I think that was the first time Australia had beaten Lithuania in a World Cup environment. Like I said, that was a huge moment in the course of the program. To be honest, qualifying for the Olympic Games in 2015, like beating New Zealand in that process, and I told the Bogut story. When you talk about coach and enjoyment and pressures, that's the biggest pressure I've ever felt going into a series of games. Those 2 games, couldn't sleep the week leading into it. There's so much riding on this, and I think people perhaps can't appreciate like how much of the funding for the sport is based on Australia qualifying for an Olympic Games. And so it's not just, you know, it's not just the Boomers. It's the entire sport of basketball, which will be affected if you don't win these games.
Right.
And you don't qualify for the Olympics. And that's a pretty big responsibility to take on behalf of the basketballing country and the basketballing nation. And so here we go.
Cory Webster comes out and catches fire.
Yeah, exactly. You know, 2-game series, you get in the foul trouble, you miss some shots. We all know analytics suggests that stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
And so anything can happen. And so we get through that and qualify, you know, winning that, and just the relief of qualifying for the Olympics, that one absolutely stands out. Playing France and Serbia in 2016, like our opening 3 games of the 2016 Olympics, when it comes out, is one of the qualifiers, which I can't remember which one was was either France or Serbia. And then so we open up with Serbia, France, USA, first 3 games of the Olympics. And you look at that and you go, here we go, we're on, you know. And taking you back, so winning game 1 of the 2014 World Cup, that was a significant moment. Then beating Lithos, then winning game 1 of the 2016 Olympics was huge. And then going on to beat France set us up for that tournament. And then playing a quarterfinal situation against Lithuania, and knowing and feeling that all the work that had come before and everything we'd done to that point gave us tremendous confidence going in that quarterfinal against Lithuania that we'd win. Like, there was a sense of, yeah, we got this. We've figured them out. We've got their number, and our group can beat their group. And we did. I mean, we went on and we won that game and played particularly well. And again, disruptive styles that we'd learnt from losing to them by 40 the first time we played them in Lithuania came back to roost and help us at a pretty important time. And so those were all, you know, key moments and key games. And then that culminates in, you know, the whole World Cup qualification process. There's lots of cool and key wins there. Even just winning the first game, beating Chinese Taipei in Taipei with a group that has spent 4 days together, and NBL guys finding a way together. Actually, the Asia Cup campaign with those guys was unbelievable. That was a really cool and unique basketball experience. So yeah, all that is kind of a long-winded way of saying the USA game was just one of many special. It's the journey. Everyone always speaks about the journey, and I know it gets cliched, but it is when you reflect on everything that sort of happened along the way to enable these so-called successes to become reality. That part of it's pretty cool. So USA, one of those games.
It was one of those games for you, for the
For
knockabout.
us.
It was the win.
I get it. But I mean, again, I think to show how dedicated the team was. I mean, maybe it was in Bogut's press conference, or he spoke about it to the group afterwards. Was enjoy this tonight, fellas. Put it to bed. We got a gold medal to go win. Like, that wasn't what it was huge for the Australian public, and as you guys continue to say, it was a huge moment for Australian basketball, and we can't skip that, and we certainly didn't skip that in the moment. But the reality was, we were there for something else. We were there to go and win a gold medal at the World Cup, and so straight back on the task. That
for me is the shame for me. That's because you never got to have at an Olympics or a World Cup just that pure joy moment where each one of those big wins you spoke about, there was more work to be done. That's for me is the shame that I think you deserved, and obviously the guys on the floor as well, but you deserve to have that moment of a bronze medal game win or a gold medal game win where there's no more work to be done. That the result is there. We can let our hair down, so to speak, and just enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I mean, it's unfortunate we didn't get those moments, and I'm again most disappointed for the athletes. That's who you do this for and with, and the relationships that you and the bonds that you form with those guys, and those two locker rooms, the two bronze medal game losses are the worst locker rooms I've ever been in. Hard situations, even hard to reflect on now. Just the hurt and the pain that you can see in the guys, and like knowing there's nothing, like we can't fix this now, like it's done. And they've given all that they have, and again, they're such wonderful human beings that to see people that you care and love hurt like that is tough to go through. And so not fun places to be, and yet still so proud of the way that they played and the way that they represented the country and everything that they had achieved to that particular point. And so, it's a tough place to be.
Do you speak in that situation? Like in the locker room, do you say something like, do you stand up and address a team like you would after a normal game? How do you, as the coach who's hurting, equally as much, have to try and push through for a minute or two and try and do what you do so well?
I mean, the reality is nothing you can say there is going to change the hurt. The only thing that you speak to is, you acknowledge that it sucks and it hurts, but that I'm very proud to be involved with each and every one of them, and the fact that they've represented the country, they've represented Australian basketball tremendously well, and I know everybody's proud of them. And that's sort of the only message that you can leave with them at that point. You try to reconnect at a later stage when the emotions have died down. But there's really nothing else you can do in that situation.
And based on what you just said there, you're right. There's nothing you can say, but the words is really a message that's echoed through the basketball community in Australia, and how we're all feeling, of course, not the emotional hurt of being and being a part of that game, but the fact that sitting in a stand or sitting in the couch or watching it on TV, and while it sucks, the pride that we continue to feel, and a lot of what you spoke about earlier about the journey, about the 2014 Worlds that might not have gone all that well, and then to Rio, and then into last year's World Cup campaign, while the ultimate medal hasn't happened yet. The fact is that the basketball community here in Australia is just so incredibly proud of how this team continues to front up, led by you for a long period of time, and have really transformed basketball from a men's side of it in this country to where they sit as one of the best in the country right now. So, yeah, look, I guess in that situation as well, if we look at this particular game, I speak on so many people to say thank you, because it was a magical day to be a part of. While it might not have led to what you as the coach were hoping to achieve at the end of the campaign, to have someone, and so many of us have been traveling, right around the world, had the privilege to see such great sporting events. That sits right there at the very top of mind, because it was just amazing to be there, mate. So thank you not only for joining us today, but being a part of that Australian Boomers campaign for a long period of time. And now we can just go back to Liam ripping apart your Brisbane Bullets offense if you get beaten a game. So it's good.
No, thanks, Cam. Thanks for those kind words. I really appreciate it. And that's, again, what makes the participating in the national team so special, is seeing the joy and the pride that it brings to everybody in the community. And you don't often get the opportunity for people to express that. And so, yeah, thank you. I appreciate you doing so.
Now, before we do leave you, NBL Rewind, I'm not sure how much of it you catch, but we go back, watch an old game, obviously. Is there one that sticks out for you? Is there a game that you gave us a career high in the NBL in your playing days we should go back and glance at?
I think my career high in the NBL might be 7 points. So there's not too many highlights for me as a player, certainly more as a coach.
As a coach.
Yeah.
We might go back and watch one of those New Zealand games sometime soon. I think we've been talking about Rewind and doing some Breakers Championship. So fun times. Hashtag NBL Rewind if you're at home watching it. Dre, thank you. Of course, interesting times at the moment, but looking forward to NBL 21 and you being back a part of that Brisbane Bullets team as you strive for more glory.
Appreciate it. Yeah, looking forward to get back on court. I think we're all anxious and just, to get back involved with the fans and people like yourselves who just love the game. So, yeah, let's hope we can get there sooner rather than later.
Now, I've just actually had a last-minute thing because Liam thought that he might have had your career high beat. His career high was 6.
Come on, man.
Exactly sure. Hey, I'm just saying what I've just been told. I'm just passing the information on, so it's a factual conversation. So I think Dre just got you there, but thank you.
Thanks for your analysis.
I'm only guessing that mine was 7. I'm not sure. That needs to be fact-checked as well.
We had Dean Vickerman on a couple of weeks ago talking about the NBA NBL experience, and he was talking about his career high, I think, in Illawarra, when he hit all those. They did Hacker-Vico late in the game when he got some cheapies from the foul line and a 30-point win. Hashtag NBL Rewind to get involved. NBL Overtime back next Tuesday. We'll see you next week.